Okay, this is the video recording for the additional mathematics lesson that was conducted on the 18th of April, Thursday. Now for this lesson, we started off by having a do now activity consisting of two questions. Can you work on the first question now? Okay, you can pause the video first and resume when you're ready to begin. Alright, you can resume the video. Now how do we solve this inequality? Because it's already factorized for you, you do not have to do any more factorization. Now with the factorized form, draw a curve and then you must write down the x values. Now what are the x values? From the first bracket, you should be able to see a -5. From the second bracket, this one not so direct, you have to do a little bit of background working by solving 2x minus 3 equal to 0, 2x is equal to 3 and x equals to 3 over 2. Now looking at these two values, -5 and 3 over 2, on the number line, -5 is on the left side. So please put -5 on the left and then 3 over 2 on the right. Okay, next, we will consider the sign. More than 0 means we will shade the right side and the left side. Now as a combination answer, or x is greater than 3 over 2 for the one on the right, or x is less than -5 on the left. Okay, this is to prepare you for WA2. Okay, the next do now activity is this one. This is directly related to today's lesson. Given a polynomial fx, state a following, okay, there's a missing word here, factor for each of the following. Okay, so I need you to fill in the blanks for the yellow color part. You can pause the video now, work on it. When you're ready, resume, and let's look at the factors in a while. Alright, let's resume the video. Okay, for the first one, instinctively, you should be able to get the answer, bracket x minus 2. Now, what is the rough working behind it? You can actually take number 2 and say that x equals to 2. Now, rearrange and make a 0 appear on the right hand side, and then we will take the x minus 2 as the factor. Now, by the same logic, the next factor for the line number 2 will be x plus 5. Now, why is it x plus 5? It's because if we were to take the -5 and write x equal -5, rearranging this gives us x plus 5 equal to 0. Then we take the x plus 5. Right? Okay, for the other few questions, this will be 2x minus 1. The next one will be 4x plus 3. This one will be 3x minus 7. And the last one is 2x plus 9. I will just show one of the examples, for instance, this one. Now, how did I get the factor 2x plus 9? The rough working behind this is focus in on the -9 over 2. Tell yourself x equals to -9 over 2. Balance both sides, get rid of the denominator, and I times 2 times 2. This will give me 2x on the left and a -9 on the right. Balance the -9 over, it becomes a +9, and then equal 0. The trick is always ensure a 0 appears on the right hand side. Now once I am satisfied, sorry, give me a moment. Once I'm satisfied, I will take the 2x plus 9 and put it into here as the factor. Now this is a very important skill for today's lesson as we continue with topic 4.3. Now with that, can you take out your topic 4.3 and let's begin the lesson. Alright, now for chapter 4.3, last lesson, we have actually established some of these learning targets already. So on Wednesday this week, we have already covered the factorization of the first one, Okay, but of course in the notes it's written as a cube plus b cube. Now how to factorize this? Remember, there's a small bracket, there's a big bracket, and then same, opposite, always positive. Here will be a, b, a square, a times b, and b square. So this is for the a cube plus b cube. Okay, I hope you remember that. Okay, moving on, we also covered the one that deals with the a cube minus b cube. So factorize a cube minus b cube, and it becomes one small bracket, one larger bracket, same, opposite, always positive. A minus b, a square plus a times b plus b square. So this was also covered last lesson. Now what we have not covered last lesson was the third kind, and this is what we're going to carry on today. The factorization of a longer cubic expression that could possibly look something like this. Let's say 2x cubed plus 7x squared minus 3x plus 6, something like that. And you are supposed to rewrite this, factorize it into 3 different brackets. Now of course the answer here is wrong. Okay, it's not exactly the same. Okay, but the idea is to get it into 3 different brackets. Now each of these brackets is known as a factor, and factor of this function. Let's call it fx. Okay, so this is what we're going to do today. But if you heard what I just said, I stress on the word factor, factor, factor. Now this tells us that today's lesson is very related to factor theorem. Okay, now factor theorem says if x plus 2 is a factor of fx, then we must be able to say that f substitute negative 2 must be equal to 0. This is a fact. If we work backwards, if you are given f substitute negative 2 is a 0, and you really got a 0, then you must know that x plus 2 is a factor. So for today, which one is more important? For today, this working backwards is important. When you are given that f substitute negative 2 is 0, then x plus 2 must be a factor of the polynomial. Alright, with this, we will continue with this third learning target on factorization. Okay, and you should be going through your notes. And let's go to page 3. Okay, page 3. The factorizing of cubic polynomials when it is a longer string of terms with 1 in x cubed, 1 in x squared, 1 in x, and 1 with a constant term. But I must caution you, sometimes some of these terms may be missing. Okay, when it's missing, make sure you put plus 0, let's say x squared. Okay, if there are missing terms. Okay, for now, let's not worry about that first. Okay, for now, let us move on. So, this will be the step-by-step guide on how to factorize a long polynomial, but we've actually covered something similar on page 5 the other day already. Can you turn to page 5? Okay, which is this question. Is it page 5? Yeah, page 5. Now, today we are going to factorize 2x cubed minus 5x squared plus x plus 2 into 3 brackets. So the ultimate aim is to get this polynomial into 3 brackets. Now each of them is a factor. And each of them has to satisfy the factor theorem. So what we need to do first is I am going to try to get one of the factors out. And based on what I wrote below, we are going to try our luck first. Okay, try x minus 1. So let's try x minus 1. Now to check whether or not is it really a factor, we try, let's substitute. F substitute 1 is 2 times 1 power 3 minus 5 times 1 squared plus 1 plus 2. Now if you press the calculator, indeed the value is a 0. So what we have just established is F substitute 1 is 0. So since F substitute 1 is a 0, the x minus 1 that we tried just now must be a factor. And this is according to the factor theorem. And because of that, we have successfully found one of the factors, which is x minus 1. Okay? Now, you may be wondering, teacher, how are you so lucky that you can get the factor just by trying x minus 1? How do you know that x minus 1, this x minus 1, how do I know that this one confirm will give a 0? Is it by pure luck? Okay, so the thing here is this. If you were living during my time as a student when my calculator was very outdated, yes, it is really by luck. I have to try many numbers to get the 0. But for you, there is a faster way. You can actually use the calculator method to first identify this factor. Now, how do you go about doing it? Turn one page earlier. Now, this is the step-by-step guide. So I was saying, you are actually a very lucky batch of students. Your calculator actually can find the first factor for you easily. So let's go through this example first before we go back to our next question. Okay, suppose we have a new question. Factorize so and so forth completely. The step-by-step guide will tell you to go to menu and so on. Okay, if you follow these steps, you will eventually reach this particular step 6. And you will see 3 values appearing. Now, these 3 values are super important. These 3 values are related to our do now activity just now. Now, with these 3 values, we can actually work backwards from the -2 and tell yourself that x plus 2 is a factor. If you got a 2, then x minus 2 is a factor. If you get a 1, x minus 1 is the factor. Okay, so this is a very easy way to get the factors without even trying your luck. So, once you have finished that important step, please reset your calculator. If not, it will mess up the rest of your calculations. Okay, remember to reset. So with this, you can try out. For this particular question, your calculator will give you one of the values as 1. Okay, and because of that, you can work backwards and tell yourself that x minus 1 is a factor. But because of that, right, you still have to write down this working. So I did a calculation error here. This should be 0. Okay, you must still write down all these statements. So all these statements in yellow, I must see them inside the exam paper. Okay, the yellow statement must be shown. So we have successfully identified the first factor. How do we find the other 2 factors? Now these 2, do not use calculator. To find these 2, we must first perform long division. Write down. Long division. What do we use? We use the polynomial 2x power 3 minus 5x squared plus x plus 2 and the divisor of x minus 1 that we just got. Now, and since this is a factor already, we know for sure this is a factor. Please take note that later when you finish, your remainder must be 0. If you never get a remainder 0, something is wrong with your working. Now, can I give you some time to complete the long division by yourself and check the answer when you're ready? Okay, so once you have finished the long division, this is what you're going to get. Make sure your remainder is a 0. Now, the important thing in this long division now is the quotient. The quotient is the other factor. So, from the long division, The 2x squared minus 3x minus 2 is the other factor. Therefore, we can now write the original polynomial as a product of two factors. And that will be x minus 1 times 2x squared minus 3x minus 2. Now actually if you expand all this out, you will get this. But what we have found is the factorized form. Is it fully factorized? No, because this quadratic part, you will have to do the cross method to further factorize it down. Okay, so 2x squared minus 3x minus 2, 2x times x, 2 and 1, this is 4x, this is x, negative 4 plus 1. Okay, and I find that we end up with two more factors, and they are 2x plus 1, x minus 2, and that is the answer. Okay, so because of that, right, we have finally factorized this completely into three different brackets. Each of them is a factor. Okay, and that's it. So this is the we do example 2 on how to factorize a cubic expression. Now before you move on, I want to say something. Now in the N-level examination, sometimes this question can be phrased differently. Okay, so I'm going to give you an alternative way of phrasing of this question. In the N-level sometimes does not phrase it this way. N-level sometimes phrases the question like this. Express 2x cubed minus 5x squared plus x plus 2 as a product of linear factors. So they want you to write it down as a product of linear factors like this. Product, written as three brackets like this. Okay, so it's exactly the same question but written in a slightly different way. So do take note, there are two ways of asking the question. It's either the one in yellow or the one in green, but they are asking for the same thing. So when you do the 10-year series later on, when I give you the book, please recognize that these are actually asking for the same exact thing, but asked slightly differently. Okay, with that, I will give you some time now to work on the you do example 2. When you're ready, check the answer. Okay, let's see. Now from my calculator method, I finally found three different factors I can use. I decided to go with the one that is the most complicated, just for the fun of it. Okay, now on the calculator, I actually saw a value of, I think it was x3 equals to half. Now from half, we can actually work backwards and find the factor 2x minus 1. That is how I ended up with the 2x minus 1. Okay, but of course, I must still verify in the exam. Let fx be so and so forth, then I substitute, and indeed it's a 0. Now you cannot stop here. You must say, since f substitute half is indeed a 0, this is a factor of fx, and you must mention it is because of the factor theorem. Now when that is done, proceed to do long division, make sure your remainder becomes a 0, and then the quotient is the other factor. So this is the factor, this is also the factor. You write these two factors multiplied together like this below. Right? Fx equals to the divisor times the quotient, both of which are factors. Okay, for the quotient part is quadratic. Please proceed to do long division, and your final answer is 3 brackets. Okay, so that is the you do example 2. Okay, now I want to bring to your attention again, for this question, sometimes they can rephrase the question in different ways. Instead of saying factorize completely, they can say write the polynomial as a product of 3 linear factors. They can even be very clear. They can say 3 linear factors. So the 3 linear factors refer to the 3 brackets. Alright, so this is the you do example 2. Moving on. Okay, moving on. we have already covered the one of the main learning targets already, which is if you scroll all the way to the top of the set of notes just now, I already mentioned that we wanted to learn how to factorize a cubic expression into 3 factors. We are done. So we can actually check this off already. So what's left for today's lesson? Today's lesson, we're going to move on to number 4. Number 4 is no longer factorization already. Number 4 is solving cubic equations. And the technique is actually very simple. It is related to how we solved quadratic equations in eMath. Let's revise that. Okay, let's have a quick do now. How do you solve this quadratic equation in eMath? Let's say x minus 2 times 2x plus 3 equal to 0. Now eMath, you will know that because there's a 0 here, you can actually apply the zero product rule. And that tells you that x minus 2 is either 0 or 2x plus 3 is the 0. Now if you continue to solve, you're going to get x equal to 2 or x is equal to negative 3 over 2. That is for eMath. Now for now, because now that we have already learned cubic, we will encounter equations like this. Not just 2 brackets, but 3 brackets equal to 0. And then I get x minus 2 times 2x plus 3 and maybe a x minus 5. Now, the zero product rule still applies. And the method is exactly the same as how you would do it for eMath. So x minus 2 equals 0, or 2x plus 3 equal to 0, or x minus 5 equal to 0. So you realize now there are 3 equations. And you end up with 3 answers. X equals to 2, or x equals to negative 3 over 2, or x equals to 5. So there is now a third solution. So that is it. We are going to do a solving. So now that you have heard me saying this, right, technically speaking, there is really nothing new to this topic already. We just have to incorporate this concept of solving into what we have just learned. And let's do that. So if we move on to the part where we last stopped. Okay, turn to page 7. We are now going to cover the solving of cubic equations. Okay, the column is for a reason, I will tell you later. Okay, solving. So what we will do is this. We are going to encounter this word example where you are asked to solve the cubic equation. Now, you will notice that the first few steps are the same as what we have done earlier on factorization. So, let fx try one of the factors, and indeed, because it's a 0, you say that x plus 1 is a factor of fx. Then, as usual, long division, find the factor, you get remainder 0, and then you get the other factor, and you write fx as a product of 3 brackets using cross method as well. So everything in yellow was the factorization method that we have covered earlier on. So what is new? The question here is a solving question and there's an equal 0. So after you have done the yellow part, you must then solve. Now the solving part is all in blue. Look at the working now. Equal 0, equal 0, equal 0, equal 0, and then break it up into 3 different parts because of the zero product rule. Now I will need you to highlight this on your paper so that you know which are the important parts for the yellow part, which is factorization, and blue part is for solving. So eventually you will get 3 answers. X equals to negative 1, or x equals to 2, or x equals to 6. Let's proceed to do a redo example. Okay. The first few steps are the same as factorization. So we'll run through the first step. Use the calculator to get a linear factor. Now if you test your calculator, you will get something similar to. From the calculator, one of my answers happens to be I think x1 equals to 3. So I have to work backwards from the 3 and get the factor x minus 3. But of course, we cannot safely say that it is a factor until we show it. So, first step, because they never define the fx for you, you must say let fx equals to 2x power 3 and so on. Try, you must say try first. Try x minus 3. So, f substitute 3 becomes this. And if you press calculator, it is indeed 0. So what can we say from here? Therefore, f substitute 3 equal to 0 means that x minus 3 is a factor of fx. But don't forget, this is because of the factor theorem. Make sure you put in by the factor theorem. Okay, now how do we proceed to find the other factors? Do your long division. Okay, so 2x cubed minus 5x squared minus 6x plus 9. Let's factorize. Let's do the long division. 2x squared minus 6x squared bracket minus x squared minus 6x positive x and indeed, if you do a subtraction at the end, I have to get a remainder 0. This tells me that I'm on the right track. Okay, so what we have now is we have stopped at the remainder part. Now what should I do next? Look at the next working. So I am at this stage right now. I'm here. Okay, remainder 0. So I have to proceed by saying this. From the long division, the quotient is the other factor of fx. Then I proceed to write everything similarly. Okay? So, by long division, the quotient 2x squared plus x minus 3 is the other factor of fx. Now, this is the part where I must link to the solving. Don't forget, this question is still solving. So I must put in the equal 0 now. Since we already say that this part is the fx and there is an equal to 0, let's solve now. Okay, so using this, I will say fx equal 0. Now the fx, initially it was 2x cubed minus 5x squared minus 6x plus 9. Okay, but now, because we have factorized it, it can be written as one small bracket and one big bracket. The first bracket is the divisor, x minus 3. The second bracket is the 2x squared plus x minus 3 that we have just obtained from the quotient. Okay, so you will take the x minus 3 and the quotient, put it into the two brackets. Now from here, do not just stop here. We will have to go and do the cross method for this part. Let's do a cross method, fully factorize it. Okay, and I end up with x minus 3 times 2x plus 3 times x minus 1. But don't forget, this is a solving question. So there must be equal 0. And then you apply the 0 product rule. X minus 3 equal to 0, or 2x plus 3 equal to 0, or x minus 1 equal to 0. The first part gives you x equal to 3. The second gives you 2x equals to negative 3. The third part gives you x equals to 1. The middle part can be further solved into negative 3 over 2. So now I have 3 answers. x equals to 3, x equals to negative 3 over 2, or x equals to 1. So this completes the redo example for a solving kind of question. Now with that, can you move on and do the next question by yourself to solve the equation? But before you start, I want to mention something. This is the first question where there is a missing term. Can you spot it first before you begin? Where's the missing term? The missing term is the plus 0x. So it was done on purpose. Put it in first before you begin. Okay, can pause the video. Resume the video when you're ready to check the answer. Alright, let's check the answer. So what you will do is, like me, I actually tried the x plus 1 and I got that from the calculator method. And indeed, if I substitute negative 1, I got a 0. So this statement in yellow is important. State that x plus 1 is indeed a factor of fx, and you must mention by the factor theorem. After that, long division, make sure your remainder is a 0. If your remainder is not 0, something is already wrong with your work. Please check that. Now, when that is completed, you can successfully say the quotient is another factor. And then you can write the original fx as a product of 2 factors, and to get to 3 factors, you must do the cross method. And then from there, don't forget, because this is a solving question, you must use the zero product rule and get 3 solutions. Use the word or to separate them. Now with that, we have come to the end of today's lesson, which is about long division, as well as how we use that to solve solve cubic equations. So we are done with number 4. Okay, before I end, just want to caution you, for this particular topic, students sometimes they like to confuse themselves over the 2 kinds of question. The first question is factorize x cubed plus 2x squared minus 3x plus 5 versus solve x cubed plus 2x squared minus 3x plus 5 equal to 0. Please understand that the answers for these 2 questions are different, even though they look similar. For the first question, what they want to see are 3 different brackets as the final answer, and that's it. You do not move on anywhere from there. But for the next question, question 2, after you got the 3 brackets, you must say it is equal to 0, and then you must apply zero product rule, and then get 3 answers. X equals to something, or x equals to something, or x equals to something. So what I'm trying to tell you is, if this happens in the exam, do not confuse between these 2 questions. One is a factorization question, whereas one is a solving question. They are asking for different things. So please handle them differently. Okay, with that, I will end today's lesson.